So Between Two Wheels podcast, this is the best Tour de France analysis show on at this exact moment. Glad you're here. What do we have in store for you today? 203 kilometer day. As expected, it was going to be a sprint finish, but this is the Tour de France and nothing comes easy and nothing is as expected. We get our sprint, but we also got crashes affecting the general classification battle and the sprint lead out. Desperate times for sprinters as we get some chaos, some relegations. We also get dropouts and some D and Fs for this race, and one rider continues to shine. This is the 111th edition of the Tour de France, Stage 12, Between Two Wheels podcast, episode 355, right now.
Massive number of people have been upgrading. Yes,
there you go. You see the graceful limb that you were talking about before.
The race we've got yet again, and a victor then goes victory to an American, Andy Hampton.
The felt it go by. He looks at the Colombian rider. How are you doing?
Straight past Santiago Petero, and he's coming up to Pantani.
Armstrong is sitting in the last few hundred meters as we come towards the finish of this monumental stage. And
as we start to approach the line now, Pantani grits his teeth and accelerates and over the line.
Is going now to win stage number 15. Sepp Kuss, an emotional finish from Durango in the USA. Sepp Kuss wins.
The always inspiring Sepp Kuss getting a win there into Andorra a few years ago. We don't have Sepp Kuss this year. Welcome everybody. This is Tyler Yonke, the Between Two Wheels podcast. Make sure you put your notifications on because you never know when the surprise hit episode is going to come. This morning it is, it's 9:30 on the Pacific Coast. The race has been just over a little bit over an hour. I got everything prepped. I think we're ready to go. Okay. And did you see the whole thing? No, but neither did I. But with highlights and everything, we can kind of wrap things up and figure out whatever. Maybe you did. Maybe you got up early and you watched the whole entire thing. Some chaos. I was able to go back and recap, for the most part, everything I think that we need to have on this. And so we'll give you a good enough breakdown. Victor says, Tyler Yonke is live. Yes, I am. I'm alive as well. So we're going to look through this race today. And there's a few things to talk about. One is we expected a breakaway, but then also expected the sprint finish to come through eventually, right? And who's going to get out there? Well, obviously, Abrahamson. But first I wanted to take a look at this. This was going around the internets earlier this week. Look, Vlasov has a wreck on the gravel stage, was at stage 8. And gets back up on his bike, had a bit of a wobble. We talked about that. They said he had a broken ankle and then was out of the race. Now, when he wobbled, I showed you the picture there. My immediate thing was he went to put the leg over the seat and he couldn't do it. He was like, put his foot back down. And if you look at where he was standing on the cement, he was on a bit of a off. That's how he actually wrecked. There was a bit of the asphalt just broke away into the cement, into the gravel, and he went off there. And I think that's what the problem was for him going down. Now, then Geraint Thomas is saying on his podcast that he was actually being Vlasov was throwing up in the peloton, sure sign of concussion. They didn't really do much of the concussion protocol, at least that's what everyone says. So there is all this speculation, and then there's this picture of his bike. Okay, let's back up just a bit. One, Vlasov and the team said, look, the doctors came up to him. They did concussion protocol as he was on the bike in the field. They did that multiple times as best they could do. They did one after the fact. He didn't seem to have one. Now that's what they're saying, covering themselves, and I'm kind of there with you. But then people post this picture of his bike right here, broken in 3 pieces, and they're like, oh my God, of course he had a concussion. Now, let's examine this a bit. One, is this how his bike was when he got back on his bike at the race? No, that's quite impossible. I guarantee that there was maybe a crack in there, and then what the mechanics did is they just sawed it. They sawed it in 3 places so it couldn't be used, so you'd have no doubt as to what it was, and we're junking this bike. And then he took a picture of it. That's what it is. People, give me a break. The internet's, even Lance Armstrong, look at this. These bikes are made to break like this. No, they're made to break with saw marks. If you think this is the result, nothing else has happened, and this is the result of the race, you have the concussion. Okay, that's what I'm getting at here, and it's preposterous. So anyway, let's continue on. Here, I don't know, maybe we need to expand this up here so we can actually, here's the results going in GC into the day. Pogacar up 106 on Evenepoel. We've talked about this ad nauseum yesterday. Vingegaard 114, 215 to Roglic, who's still in the mix, kinda. And then 420 to Almeida back there in 5th place. That's the general classification going into today. Girmay is leading up on the points, 267 to 193 over Philipsen, and Turgis is coming in there a little bit. Abramson is up there as well. Pogacar is leading the KOM with Abramson in 2nd. Vingegaard in 3rd. Those things are probably going to change in the next week. Madwa, Carlos Rodriguez, Stephen Williams et al. Okay, there's some DNFs, and I got these mixed up here, but from yesterday you can see, well, they're kind of both. Outside the time limit yesterday was Fred Wright. He had quite some problems, and you hear the interview after the race. It doesn't sound necessarily quite so good. You had Ion Izguri DNF yesterday, Alex Reynard DNF, Tim de Klerk DNS yesterday, so he had him, and then outside the time limit with Fred Wright. Today he had Jakobsen, Pilla Bilbao, and Michael Morkov. They didn't finish; they quit during the race, and we'll show a little bit of that. And then Michael Morkov of Astana, the lead-out man for Cavendish, who actually didn't help him in the lead-out at the stage. He did win. He got caught up behind, wasn't actually able to help him. Point is, he has COVID. He's out of the race today. Here's this profile. So it starts off kind of nasty, and there's some two Cat 4s there to begin with, a sprint, intermediate sprint, one more Cat 4, and it's lumpy enough, but not enough to get rid of the sprinters. Early on, about 100 and, what is this, 200. Let's take a look at this, first of all. This is stage 12, Aurillac to Villeneuve-sur-Lot, 203.6 kilometers, and fairly early on in the race, you had this wreck go down. Sean Quinn is in the middle of the road. And how many? 111 miles. Well, it's damn Peacock. They do it in miles, and then they go back and forth kilometers. I think it was 179 kilometers. And Tadej goes down. I don't think he was really bothered at all. You can see him, and Geraint Thomas is also there, Sean Quinn, but there's a few riders that go down. Jakobsen decides at this point, he's behind this wreck actually. He's like, I'm done, and he pulls out of the race, waves goodbye. There was one of Philipsen's teammates went down as well. They were tending to him. Meanwhile, the break is going up the road, 143.7 kilometers to go. They have a 2:45 lead. There's Pascher, there's Madwa, there is Turgis, and Abramson up there to get the points. So some of the Turgis is probably looking for green points. He's also been a strong rider. Remember, he won the other day on the gravel. Abramson has been very strong. He's in the break today. He ends up doing work at the finish as well. He does take some KOM points here. Let's see if we can actually see what he ends up getting for some of these KOMs. But he won them. That's kind of the whole point. We want to get out of that. And so he's going to move himself up a little. Pilla Bilbao, I guess he hasn't been feeling well, and he takes a break from the race, abandons. At the intermediate sprint, 92.6 kilometers to go. It wasn't even much of a competition. Girmay takes it quite easily. I don't know if it's kind of a weird the way that they Philipsen sat up there. Either way, gave him a fist bump afterwards. 68.8 kilometers. They have a 55-second gap to the field. The break does. Turgis is gone, going up that last climb. Madwa and Pascher, they decided to keep kicking on with Abramson, but eventually they are caught. Now, everything's together. Coming in here, 12 kilometers to go. And 12.3. I think today they actually extended the zone of crashing out to 10 kilometers, okay, which is kind of a weird thing. But they come into this section and they suddenly have these barriers like cement right down the middle of the road. It wasn't marked off. You know, we talked earlier about the UCI fining Carlos Bernard or one of those guys for a little trek for getting off the stopping on the side of the road during the time trial to say hello to his wife, and they said it damages the spirit of the vision of cycling. They also did one of the Astana riders that stood by the road because he was behind the race, watched the big screen, seen Mark Cavendish win. They also did the same exact thing. At what point does the UCI get to fine ASO for damaging the vision and the spirit and the integrity of cycling by not putting up a barrier for this thing today? I didn't see one out there. And look at this. You can see this edging here. It's quite abrupt. So if you hit this, you're going to go down. Now, they came into this, and I guess maybe the riders just didn't see it. It looks like it's been extending for quite a ways, so they're aware of this situation happening here. But some Astana rider just goes over the side, causes a crash, but it loops out to the other side as well. I think maybe, I don't know how it happens on the left side when he was on the right side, but maybe he does come from the left, bounces over, knocks out riders on the right. You can see Mathieu van der Poel in the bushes here. I don't think he really ever goes down, which is kind of odd because he's got his foot down here, just leaned up against the bushes. He doesn't really get back to help his team at all, which is somewhat disturbing for Philipsen. We'll get to that on the sprint. I think this is Maxim van Gils going down for Lotto Destiny on the left-hand side. The right-hand side, Roglic went down. There's some other Astana riders that went down hard. And this was the devastating part because Roglic got hurt pretty bad. You can actually see a look here of the damage, at least to his side. But here you go. Here's the Astana rider. He's getting bumped over here. So maybe this is where this whole thing happens. He then jettisons himself over this edge. He puts his foot down, can't do it, and ends up flipping. Now, if you look in here real tight, you could kind of see that he's going down, and right behind him, there's a rider. It's hard to see on this view, but there's a bike already in the air, and that's Roglic hitting and flipping his head over, going ass over tea kettle, and he goes down pretty hard. And we'll look here. At some point, Roglic gets up, gets on his bike, and the team does not do much hard chasing. Okay, now we're at 4.6 kilometers to go. I don't know if Pogacar or some of these teams didn't get the memo. I believe, at least what they were saying on TV, that the zone for the GC riders was 10 kilometers rather than the normal 3 that we saw yesterday with Roglic. Got saved a bit there. And then, or 5 that they've had, and even 4 at other spots. Pogacar is doing a good job of trying to stay up and out of trouble. You can see a few Astana riders because they have Cavendish in the mix here, and I'll try to point out where some of these are. So Wout is moving himself up. You've got Uno X here for Christoph. Bauhaus is up there for Bahrain. Remember, Pella came out. But Philipsen is all over the board here. As we saw, Mathieu van der Poel went down, didn't go down, but he got held up by this wreck. Almost everybody, not everybody, but quite a few people came back. I'll have to look and see if he actually, in the results, if Van der Poel actually came back to the group. Let's take a look here. I'm gonna find this out right as I can. Van der Poel. So no, he's 4 minutes back from the group. So evidently he never made it back. So that was disappointing because what you end up seeing here is Philipsen. While Philipsen has a teammate up there, he ends up doing a lot of surfing. Still in the front, 4.4. You've got, once again, Bauhaus is kind of coming up there. Abramson decides he's going to start doing some work, and he comes up here right around the 4-kilometer range and hangs out for a bit. You've got Jonas's team, Visma Lisa Bike. They're still doing this work with Tade's team up here, making sure everyone's out of trouble. DSM is doing some work here. Let's see if DFSM, who are they going for? Because Bram Welton and... I mean, that's kind of odd that they were. I was trying to figure out who they're doing work for. Fred Wright's not there anymore. Jakobsen's out, yet they're going up to the front doing work today, which was somewhat unique. Now, on the left-hand side, you can see here, DeLee, he's trying to move up, but he's out in the wind. He's doing this. Tade's still up here as well. And in the mix, always in the wash, is Wout van Aert trying to do his thing. Here is the team, Bora, all back there with Roglic. There was no, you could tell they weren't chasing. They were riding. They had, I think, already thrown in the towel. I mean, look how Roglic is sitting here on the bike. You can see the one elbow, left shoulder is higher than the right shoulder. He was that way the entire time. It looked like just kind of offset when you saw him from the stage. So Victor says, what is the number of crashed cyclists for this stage? Well, I don't know. I would say close, there's 2 big crashes that we had here, probably 20, 30 riders, or somewhere around that range. Some of them may be in multiples. So there you go. So maybe he busted up his shoulder. We'll have to get a little better look at this. 2.9 DSM rider finally comes off. You've now got Israel Premier Tech trying to fight at the front. You've got Astana rider up there fighting with the Brahmanson. I don't know why they're fighting, but they're on the front kind of like pushing around. And you can see a line here. There's several, right at the top front here, there is Philipson's team. Now, Villeneuve Girmay, he just is kind of kicking back, always in the top 10 somewhere. You got Cavendish kind of washing machine himself up here. DeLee is now pushed back a bit. Jakobsen's still around. You've got Michael Matthews' team up there. Sam Bennett's trying to get in there. Christoph, you can see he's now working his way up with Philipson and with Villeneuve Girmay, and then you've got about 3 kilometers to go. Cavendish is already putting himself up in a good position. Here we go. Once again, Brahmanson still pulling this thing. I think he goes till around 2 kilometers to go, 2.4. He's still in the front. Interesting note here, you can see on the far outside our right, DeLee is trying to get pushed up along with his teammate. Now, it's one thing to kind of bring him up, but then what happens is they bring him up and they kind of just set him in the group and they hope that he finds a spot. That's not always going to be applicable or helpful. It is good to move him up, but you got to keep him out of the wind, and then he just gets washed back. Abramson still in the front, 1.8 to go. There's a little bit of pushing and fighting here. You got Uno X up in the mix, but they come over this bridge here at 1.4. The reason I'm showing this one is just to show that they were going 56 kilometers an hour. They're not blazing, and there's gaps up there. There's still room for these guys to move up, and that is good, and it's also bad. They start to move up. The problem is another guy washes around him. When the speed is not blazing high, you can move up, but then the problem also is so can everyone else, and that work you just did to get up there, suddenly guy takes a corner, and he's inside and moving up on side of you. Cavendish, now here he's about 15 back. You got DeLee, he's moved up a little bit better. He's on the left, but he's still, once again, out there and exposed, as is Philipson. Nowhere in the mix can you see Villeneuve Girmay as of yet. You got the Bahrain team on the front doing their work. DeLee is starting to move himself. Gaviria starts to move himself up as well. Look, Movistar did work today to keep this thing in check. They obviously want to help to get Gaviria in the mix. But then they don't really do much for him once he gets up there. We've seen Gaviria get in the top 10 multiple times, being able to sprint with the finish. It's always the work he's done. So maybe his thing is like, look, just get to the last 12 kilometers, then I'll just surf as best I can. It would be good to have one person, just one person, help pilot fish him to get somewhere. Last 500 meters, this is where stuff really starts to get interesting. Michael Matthews on the far right. DeLee's moving up on the right, but he's still pinched in here in the back. You've got, I don't know why Decathlon is still working for Sam Bennett. Seems useless. On the back left here is Villeneuve Girmay. It's just floating away. He does have one teammate that's helped piloting him up. Cavendish on the far left is following, I'm not sure who he's following up, but he's following up a rider. You still got Gaviria over there on the far right. Here we go from the front view. Arnaud Demar's team, Arkea, decides to hit out from the front. They're pushing over the Jayco rider on the far right, our right. You can see Villeneuve Girmay being led out by his teammate, getting him in position, and Alpecin de Koenig over here along with Cavendish on kind of on the far right-ish. Now this is not... there's still 460, 500 meters to go. It's still too far. Wout van Aert is on the left-hand side behind Demar, and that will come into play nicely. Now, here's the lead out for Demar. It's looking good. But on the right, I just want to kind of show this here. You got Cavendish over here. You got Philipson. They're just hanging out. You got an EF rider, and then you have Villeneuve Girmay sitting up here, or right behind the Israel Premier Tech rider who is now sitting up. Villeneuve's teammate decides to kick, getting him in position from the far, his left-hand side. Cavendish is with him. Let's focus, and we'll maybe come back here, but let's focus on the Cav Biniam issue. Cav, far left of the road, moving up with Biniam, and then he starts to cruise. Now both of the riders are in the middle here. They're moving further. Now they're packed over on the far right of the whole field is over on the right. There's still what, 200, or still outside the 250, so they're all ready to get in sprinting going. They're starting to move up a little bit more. DeMar's team is doing a great lead out, hasn't done anything for him. Wout's on the outside of DeMar, ready to go, but he's still a little bit exposed, and then he's got the barriers still there to worry about. They start to kick here. You can't see the amount on the outside here. You've got Philipsen. If we back it up just a bit, you see Philipsen was tucked in here. He says, I'm too far out. Now, what I do like about Philipsen's attitude here is you've seen this. We watched the Giro where we were expecting Caleb Ewing to get in the mix and to give some sprints. If Caleb Ewing is in this spot right here, he's given up already. I at least like the Philipsen says, you know what? I'm way out. I've got to take a Hail Mary. I've got nothing to do. He comes out to the outside and he starts to try to move up. He moves up past the French rider, the FDJ rider. Biniam Girmay is still getting a lead out from his teammate. He's still getting some work done. Now his teammate's off. Biniam's in the mix. DeMar starts to kick out here. Wout is getting pushed up against the barriers. Philipsen's on the outside. Cavendish is right behind Biniam. Now look at Cavendish. This will come into play as well. We'll try to break down the DeMar issue and the Cav issue. Look at Cav right behind Biniam Girmay here. You can see him in his Astana. He's going to be worried about the lead out rider for Arkea, who's drifting back. He being Cavendish wants to get out. He doesn't want to follow the wheel of Biniam. He wants to do his own. So what does he do? He cuts Brian Coquard. Now, look at this bike angle right here. He is, and by the way, this isn't just a snapshot in time. It's a snapshot in time, but this is a snapshot of what he was actually doing, which was a huge move to his left. He comes all the way out around. You can see Coquard has to get pushed out. Now remember, this is you're looking at the last 250, 200 meters to 100 meters, 150, somewhere in that range to go. This isn't something that you're doing, further out. He's doing this in the last bit, so this is all compacted in a short amount of time. He's outside. Now he goes around that rider, and look how far he's already back inside the Biniam. If we look at this, you can see the road numbers here. He goes from the double inside the double, well inside this this line, well outside the turn lane, and boom, he's back in again. That's some crazy deviation, and by the way, the officials do note that. Now, what that does when he comes out here, you can see it pushes Philipsen out a bit. Philipsen decides to come in, trying to get a wheel here. They're getting on Girmay. Girmay ends up here, coming in the post. But what happened on the other side? On the other side, you had Wout trying to get around DeMar. As we've seen so many times with Wout van Aert in the last several years, he rides up the barriers. He doesn't have anybody to do any lead out, so he has to use teams and barriers to try to get him to a spot. Okay, we saw that where he was just on the outside. Let's take a look here. Right before they kick. Okay, so if you look at Wout now here on our left, he's got it. He starts to kick. He's behind DeMar, but he's got to use that barrier. He's always kind of out in the wind and yet on their wheel. And then DeMar pushes him into the barrier a bit, comes out and actually gets Wout has to kick in front of him. But here we go. Take a look at this. Wout is over here. He stops pedaling because DeMar pushes him all the way up into the barrier. Then Wout kicks again. And when he does so, he ends up second place on the day to Biniam. Now, if he had a chance to win? Would Coquard have had a chance to win? Would many of these guys had a chance to win, but for this deviation by Arnaud Démare and by Cavendish? Now, Coquard's not going to win. I think Wout has a great chance of saying, I could have possibly won. Some of these other ones when is going out here, Coquard, I don't think Philipsen was actually had a problem, but, it's Cavendish, who knows, from behind. Maybe DeLee or one of these other guys would have done something, but it was pretty egregious. And in the end, you have Biniam Girmay gets the win, his third win on the day. Wout van Aert coming in second. Pascal Ackermann of Israel Primatech in third. Jasper Philipsen gets moved up because he had been in sixth place, but you had, I think, Cavendish had beat him to the line, as well as Arnaud Démare, and they both got relegated, as they should have. I would say this. I would say that Démare's is such a slight deviation. Hey, if you guys want to learn how to sprint, watch stage 11 from yesterday. Jonas and Pogačar, straight up sprint. Jonas leads him out, goes straight for the line, holds him off from the front, and gets the win without having to push him into the barriers, without having to deviate off his line. And it was a clean sprint. It was one of the cleanest sprints we've seen all year, okay? But with that in mind, that wasn't the way it is today. And with DeMar's more, I think Cavendish's was just plain dangerous. It was just dangerous, didn't have to do it, but he's desperate at this point. This is exactly what he did the day he won, which was a complete drastic change. And I know everyone's like, oh, look, it was clean. And it's like, and they're even saying he looked, if you watch that again, there's not a look across. He's just blowing out. So, you know, Cavendish does Cavendish stuff. Philipsen does Cavendish stuff. And Philipsen is demonized, and Cavendish isn't. That's my only. And are either one of them clean necessarily? No. Philipsen, though, was clean today. I would say there wasn't a problem with it, the way he rode. Villeneuve-sur-Lot was clean. Arnaud Démare, once again, you're pushing a guy into the barriers. He's got to stop and pedal. You just don't need to do that. But it's so slight. I mean, you look at the deviation Démare does. That one, I think, is questionable. I understand the ruling on it, but I also think it's somewhat, it's such a wobbler, as we would say. So I could see both sides of it. I don't really have a problem with it either way. The general classification, though, it did get shaken up today. You got Pogačar still in the lead here. Let's go back to this one. Evenepoel, Remco, but you got Roglic dropping down to 4:42. He loses almost 2 minutes on the day. Rough time for him on that crash. As you can see, didn't look so good. We'll see if there's an update on how he comes about. Girmay in the points jersey extends that to Philipsen at 221. Turgis is moving up, gets 141. Abramson, 124. And Cockard at 117 moves up one spot. Arnaud Démare moves up a spot. And Gaviria moved down today as well. There's the KOM. Pogačar now tied on points with Abramson, but Abramson will wear that jersey tomorrow, but he's not going to be in the lead on it. He didn't get to be on the podium today, and the reason being is you count back to the highest climb points won, which Abramson's winning Cat 3s and 4s. Tadej is getting Cat 2s and 1s. So there you go. Tadej gets the count back, as you would expect. All right. Look, exciting day today. A little bit of a breakdown. What you didn't see today was great teamwork, other than Démare. Démare, by the way, he didn't have. He's not the sprinter. He should have been beat by Wout, because Wout did get pushed over. Straight up clean sprint on those two. He's going to get beat, but he got a lead out today. Girmay, he doesn't have a lead out, but up until the finish there, his teammate was still pushing the pace and putting him in a position where he just did not have to do a lot of. Philipsen completely missed his team today. As you saw, he had to come out from a long way. He hit the wind. He's very clean about it, but he had to hit the wind from a long ways out to try to get that spot to be able to move up, to actually hit the wind and get the finish, but he wasn't able to do it. He did get moved up 2 spots due to the relegation. Cav, dangerous ride, completely deserved to be relegated today. Even then, if you just look at the sprint, though, I think he had legs, because he's not in good position. His team couldn't do much for him. They tried early on. They had a guy crash. Morkov is out with COVID, and yet he was still on the straight-up sprint before relegation, was able to get, I think, 5th today, fifth or 4th. So he did have some decent legs in him. Delis, he's been a disappointment for me in this tour. I expected him to get a win the way he won the Belgian National Championships. His team hasn't really been able to do it for him. You saw, though, Maxime Van Niel's down in the crash on the 12 kilometers to go, not looking good, so they're a little bit depleted there. But they're disorganized coming into the finish. Ackerman's at least getting a chance. Israel Primertech is doing some work. They're getting up there. Jayco's a mess. They have Groenewegen. Groenewegen was nowhere to be seen today. You saw Michael Matthews up and around there. Decathlon, they've got to give up on Sam Bennett. And Jakobsen for DSM, he's obviously out, and their guys are still up there doing work. Christoph, you're not going to win. You're going to get top 10s. Good for you for Uno X. They're getting exactly what you would expect out of them. Vandenberg for EF, he was 11th on the stand. Ryan Gibbons for Little Trek, he was 10th. Groenewegen was 9th. Carcard 8th. Phil Bauhaus 7th. Christoph 6th. So see, Christoph and Delis 5th. But you can adjust those on the actual sprint. Yes, the deviation thing. Those guys did not get hurt. I think Cockard got pushed. He got slowed down today by Cavendish's move. Obviously, Wout did by Démare. So there you go. All right. Wow, we're getting a bunch of... Okay. Biniam Girmay. Yes, Biniam Girmay. Eritrea, look, 3rd win for him this year on the tour. Loving this. He is in fantastic form, putting himself in position. you got to give it to Wanty. I mean, it does just thrill me to no end to see a team like this. Once you start to get a win, they're still doing what they need to, and Biniam is still delivering solid work for the Eritrean. Happy for him, and he seems to be a pretty humble guy. He wasn't it was supposed to be Thiessen. Gerben Thiessen was supposed to be their sprinter for this race, and the first stage that Biniam won, Thiessen could not get himself in position. Biniam ended up taking the win, and the team and even Gerben has been perfectly fine with it. So good for them, well, so to speak. It seems like that in there. Last thing I'll say is all the hubbalaboo yesterday about Tade's riding, Jonas, and Roglic and Evenepoel. And if this is the proper moves to do, I went over that, so I would encourage you to go back and check out last stage 11, the analysis from there. But I think it's right. A lot of people are getting up on the boards and kind of getting up in arms about Tade's racing. Now, I absolutely love the racing that he did, how he is doing it. I just think if he wants to win the Tour, this is not the best way to go about it. Julian Alaphilippe, we saw that several years ago where he held the yellow jersey. I want to say it was a 2019 Tour that was eventually won by Egan Bernal, where he held that jersey up and through like 17 stages, somewhere around there. But he was doing a lot of this unnecessary attacking. It makes you wonder what could he have done that year if he hadn't have. Now, he did end up getting blown out there, but up until that point, he was exciting to watch. Tade is very similar. We saw in 2020, he didn't have a team like this, and he had to go much more reserved. He waits until the Planche de Belfi, wins the time trial against Roglic with the cocked helmet, and he's the winner. And then the next year, he wins it quite nicely. Doesn't have to do as much extraneous work that he feels like he has to do now. We saw the Giro, him doing this, and there's complaints about Tade and his riding of you're not sharing the spoils with the other teams. I always think that's a horrible excuse. TJ Van Garderen on Peacock was going off about this. I like the guy. I enjoyed watching him as a racer. He's fine an announcer, but some of his takes are just blow me away about how when Bob Roll he calls them debates, but pushing back, and Bob Roll sounds like the sane one, you've got a problem with your argument. He's once again saying, he's not making friends in the peloton, and he's not. It's like, okay, are you here to win those friends, or are you here to win the race? And that is not the way you argue it, TJ. What you say is he's not making the best approach for him to win this race. This is a race of micro cuts, can turn into a full-on bloody issue where you're bleeding out. And if you're not taking care of your team appropriately, and you're not taking care of yourself appropriately, you're going to kill them in the end, especially when you look at this last week of racing, which is just brutal, and it's going to start on Saturday. Let's take a look at tomorrow's stage. And by the way, everybody, if you're in here, check out any of the other previous episodes if you can, and hit the like button. Also hit the subscribe so you don't miss out any of the shows, because you never know when they're going to be coming up. Here's tomorrow's stage, though. I don't know if it's going to be a sprint, but I think you're going to see. You've seen Philipsen get a win. He wants two. He wants two badly. That's why he actually gave a hoot today and tried to get out and make the win. But he needs his team with him, and he needs Mathieu van der Poel to be piloting him along and putting him in position. If he had been in position today, I think he wins once again. I think he's got legs to do it. Biniam did a great job, but look who Biniam was going against. I mean, Wout's up there second. Cav coming, snaking around. I mean, he did more traversing mileage in the last kilometer than most of the riders. Jasper's coming from way back, obviously. I mean, nothing against Biniam. Biniam puts himself in position, and then you're going to post that up. Not a problem. So here's tomorrow's stage, though. Once again, it could be very much a sprint for us. How many kilometers? 165 kilometers, so just around 100 miles. They're going into Po. This will be on a Friday, and then we start the big weekend, the first of two, which is you're going to do the Tourmalet, the Angzian, and the Xo Platidé, and that's at 100. That's just under 100 miles. Oops, this is tomorrow's stage. And then Lodenville to Plata de Bay, 197. Bam, 197. They have a Cat 1 right out of the Parasword, right out of the box. The Col de Mente, the Col de Portes Aspe, the Col de Agnes, and the Plata de Bay. So Plata de Bay, It's going to be honky tonk. I'm looking forward to it, people. Should be an exciting show. All right. Thank you, everybody. Between Two Wheels podcast. Once again, join us the next time, as we will always be here for you. Stage 13 coming up tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed it today. Record breaking. Once again, 3 wins by Villeneuve-sur-Lot of Eritrea and Wanty. More importantly, Intermarché Wanty is their 3rd win. First time they've... Look, we have one rider that's repeated wins, which is Villeneuve-sur-Lot. You expected Tade yesterday to have done that. He could not have done that, but he ended up doing it. So, look, yeah, we are Binny fans here. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. And we will see you tomorrow.
Froome now, he goes on the offensive, he goes on the attack over the top of this final climb, and nobody at the moment can go with him.
He had 75 kilometres to go, and now under the Flamme Rouge, and there he is, still the virtual Maglia Rosa on the road. Who would have thought it at the start of today? But Chris Froome, master